Good morning, BNI. This is Yash Vasant, an executive director from BNI in India, and here's a very special Eduslot for all of us today. So, how many of you think time is important? Take a second. Yeah, I see some people nodding. Well, about this, how many of you think the weather is important? Some of you, yes, some of you, no. But the real answer is, well, the weather is not really all that important because my business or who I am or what I do or my mood doesn't really depend on the weather. Why? Because I can't control the weather. Similarly, I don't think time is very important because I can't control time. Time does what it needs to do and I do what I need to do. But time isn't all that important. However, timing is everything. Timing is in our control, and timing is what everything we do is about. Most of us get hung up on time, but it never was about time. It was about timing, meaning being in the right place at the right time. A quick kind of show of hands. How many of you think that you're lucky? Yeah, how many of you think that you're lucky? Okay. How many of you think you're unlucky? Okay. Well, a lot of you seem to be, considering yourselves lucky. And here's the truth: is I think all BNI members are full of luck, and they're lucky, and I'll tell you why. But here's a story from a scientist. I forget where he was from, but I believe he was at one of the universities in the U.S. and he did this experiment on luck. So they took several hundred sample sizes, and they took groups of people. And they asked them, how many of you think you're lucky, how many unlucky? And they took the lucky ones and the unlucky ones in two separate groups, and they took them to supermarkets. Now, in these supermarkets, they'd hidden about 10 gold coins at random places in the supermarket. And so they took the lucky group outside the supermarket and said, hey, guys, go in and you have 10 minutes, let's say, go and find the gold coins, and the gold coins you get are yours. And they did the same with the unlucky group. Guess who found the gold coins more often and almost always? You're right, the lucky ones. The people that thought they were lucky were lucky. But here's all what luck is. Luck is nothing but location, understanding, connections, and knowledge. That's it. That is it. Location, understanding, connections, and knowledge. And that's why I think a lot of BNI members, or all BNI members, are lucky, because tell me, are we at the right place at the right time? Almost always. Look at the room you're in today. Do we have an understanding of what each other does and what our needs and wants are? 100%. Do we make the right connections? Well, that's what BNI is about. And do we have the right knowledge to back us up in the business we're doing or the enterprise we're running? And the answer is 100%. I hope so. That is what luck is. Because very often, I wanted to make this video to kind of drive home a simple message of, which I think people forget, of what BNI really is in our lives. Because I think people around the world complicate BNI too much, and it's actually way simpler than what it looks. And let me tell you what BNI is to me, and I'll share with you a story that I really love, and it kind of forged the way I think as a business person over the past so many years. So I love Japan. I don't know how many of you have been to Japan, but if you've been there, you'd fall in love with it. It's a great country, and the culture is very rich and very unique. And anyways, back in the day, this must have been in the 60s or 70s, I'm not certain. The Japanese, by the way, the Japanese love eating fish, right? They love their sushi and they love their raw fish. So about in the 60s or 70s, there was a time when, due to whatever reason, there was a massive overfishing that happened, and the coast around Japan was completely dry of fish. We're talking like famine levels, where there was this big issue that came about because no one was able to find fish in the shallow waters, and the fishermen would come to the fisher markets with no fish, and the Japanese population really kind of wanted their fish, and now there was nothing to eat. And this is the staple food. So it was a big crisis. They all got together. They said, well, what do you do? And the simple solution was, let's just go into the deeper waters because, we'll find some fish. And that's what they did. All the fishermen got into their boats and they, put some more fuel, and they went out into the deeper waters. And lo and behold, they found a bunch of fish. So they caught the fish, put it on the boat, and they brought it back to shore, and they put it in the fish markets. Man, did the Japanese population hate it? This was the worst fish they've ever had, they said, because it took so much time for the boats to come back from, the deeper waters into the market, that the fish was really soggy and just it wasn't healthy to eat. And the Japanese population hated it. Now these guys had a problem at their hands. They said, well, we got to go far. It takes time. How do we bring this fish back fresh? They said, well, let's freeze it. Let's put it on ice. So they kind of rigged their boats, and they put ice and dry ice and all kinds of stuff to refrigerate the fish. They went out again this time. They caught the fish, put it on slabs of ice, and brought it back. As they brought it back, they put it on the market, and guess what? The population said, man, we hate this. We didn't ask for frozen fish. We want fresh fish. If we wanted frozen, we'd get it from somewhere else. This is horrible. We refuse to eat this. And now they had a problem. Say, well, what do we do now? They don't want it frozen. Well, this isn't the kind of fish that's selling. So all the fishermen, they kind of got together again in their council or whatever it may be, and they kind of came up with a plan. They said, well, look, if we can't bring them back on ice, we'll just bring them back alive. So they again re-rigged their boats, true story, and they went out and they made little aquariums in their boat, like little storage tanks where they could keep the fish in water. So they went out and they got thousands of fish in a boat, and they put them in these large water tanks or water containers in their ships, and they brought the vessels back to the shore, and they put them in the market. And the Japanese buyers, they immediately responded saying, this is the worst out of the entire lot, because the fish is so full of water by just, there's thousands of fish in this little water tank where sure they're alive, but it's horrible. They're soggy, they're full of water. This is just sickly. And no one would buy the fish. Now there's a serious problem. They didn't know what the hell to do. They had nowhere to go. They didn't know who to turn to. And all these guys came together. They can't bring it on ice. They can't bring them back alive. It's too far. What do they do? And there's always some wise old man. I don't know who it was, but they went to some wise old man. And fishermen got together and said, well, this is our problem. And the man gave them one solution. I know some of you may know it, but he gave them one solution which till date is used by several fisheries around the world. And the solution, he said, was sure, go out there, put the fish in water tanks, but this time add a shark to the tank. So they went out, they said, really? They said, yeah. And so they went out and they put a shark in these water tanks. And by the time they came back and they put the fish in the market, the population loved it. All the buyers were ecstatic. They said this is the best fish they've ever had, even before the famine. This is the greatest fish we've had, because that one shark in the water, sure, it ate 10 out of 1,000 or whatever, but the rest of the fish that survived was so busy like running around because of that shark and running for their lives. They got fit. They actually were better than you would ever find in natural waters. And that shark today is BNI. BNI is that shark in our lives, because look at what it's doing to us. All we all are doing for each other is pushing us just a little bit to go a little further, to buy that company, to sell that company, to stop doing something, to start doing something. A little kick in the bum saying, hey, let's go ahead today and let's do this. Because sometimes all we need is each other to break our own inertias. And BNI is that inertia breaker. BNI is that shark. So I hope you enjoyed that. I'm so happy to be able to do this for you. And reach out to me sometime if you want to say hi. You'll find me, Yash Vasant, on whatever social media. And I look forward to staying in touch. Wish you all the very best and happy networking.